James Holt's decision to step down as executive director of Archewell has been widely discussed, debated, and in some corners deliberately distorted. But at the heart of this transition is a story that is far more grounded, human, and positive than many critics are willing to acknowledge, and it is a story best understood through Holt's own words, his long-standing relationship with Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex, and the context of years of committed service rather than through sensational headlines. Holt has been one of the most consistent and trusted figures in the Sussexes' professional and philanthropic world, working closely with them from the early days of Archewell, as they sought to build an organisation rooted in compassion, impact, and long-term social change. In an official statement released upon announcing his decision, James Holt made it clear that his choice to step down was not driven by disagreement, fallout, or dissatisfaction, but by a deeply personal and practical consideration: the desire to return to the United Kingdom and be closer to his family after spending approximately 5 years living and working in Los Angeles. In his statement, Holt expressed gratitude rather than frustration, describing his time working with Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex as one of the great privileges of his professional life, and emphasising how proud he is of the work they accomplished together. He spoke warmly of their shared values, their commitment to meaningful philanthropy, and the care with which they approach the causes they support, from mental health advocacy to humanitarian response and digital safety. Holt explained that when he first relocated to the United States, it was always understood as a chapter rather than a permanent relocation, and as his family's needs evolved, returning home became the right and responsible decision. Crucially, Holt did not describe his departure as an ending, but as a transition, noting in the same official statement that he will continue to support the Sussexes as a senior philanthropic advisor, particularly on international initiatives, a detail that strongly reinforces the positive nature of his relationship with them. This ongoing involvement directly undermines claims that he was eager to distance himself or cut ties, as people leaving under negative circumstances rarely remain in advisory roles. Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex, in their own public response, mirrored Holt's tone, praising his leadership, integrity and dedication, and thanking him for helping to shape Archewell into an organisation that reflects their values and aspirations. They highlighted his role in guiding the foundation through its formative years, and emphasised that his influence will continue to be felt even as he steps away from day-to-day management. Despite this clarity, critics of the Sussexes quickly seized on Holt's announcement as an opportunity to reinforce long-standing narratives about instability, staff turnover, and alleged dysfunction, often ignoring or downplaying Holt's own words in favour of speculation. Some commentators framed his departure as evidence of trouble behind the scenes, suggesting that no senior figure would leave unless there were deeper problems, a claim that overlooks the reality that senior professionals routinely step back from demanding roles for family reasons, particularly after years of intense work. Others pointed to broader restructuring within Archewell, including changes in staffing levels and organisational focus, and attempted to link Holt's decision to these shifts, implying a causal relationship without presenting any direct evidence. Tabloid headlines amplified this interpretation, using language designed to provoke alarm and controversy, portraying Holt as quitting rather than transitioning, and framing Archewell as an organisation in crisis rather than one evolving. Online critics went further still, using Holt stepping down to revive familiar talking points about the Sussexes being difficult to work with or unable to retain staff, often recycling anecdotes and assumptions rather than engaging with the specifics of Holt's case. What these critiques consistently fail to address is the fact that Holt stayed in his role for years through intense public scrutiny, political polarisation, and relentless media attention, and that he chose to speak publicly with warmth and appreciation rather than ambiguity or distance. In his official statement, Holt made a point of affirming his respect for Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex as leaders, describing them as thoughtful, principled, and deeply committed to making a positive difference, words that stand in stark contrast to the negative caricatures often promoted by their critics. He referenced specific areas of work that he found especially meaningful, including initiatives supporting veterans, families affected by conflict, and communities harmed by online abuse, underscoring that his professional fulfillment, not burnout or disillusionment, defined his tenure. Supporters of the Sussexes have noted that critics tend to interpret any change as confirmation of their pre-existing beliefs, while refusing to accept straightforward explanations when they do not fit a negative narrative. In Holt's case, the explanation is both ordinary and reasonable. After half a decade abroad, with a young family and strong ties to the UK, returning home became a priority, and stepping down from a US-based executive role was the logical step to make that possible. The fact that Holt coordinated his departure publicly, issued a gracious and detailed statement, and confirmed his continued advisory role suggests planning and mutual respect, rather than sudden rupture. It also reflects a broader reality about philanthropic work, where leadership transitions are common and often healthy, allowing organizations to adapt while retaining institutional knowledge through advisory relationships. Critics, however, have often framed Archewell as uniquely chaotic, treating any transition as proof of failure, even though similar changes at other foundations rarely attract the same scrutiny or hostility. By contrast, Holt's positive statements about the Sussexes offer an alternative narrative, one grounded in collaboration, shared purpose, and professional respect. His words indicate that he views his time at Archewell not as something to escape from, but as a meaningful chapter he is proud of, one he remains connected to, even as his life circumstances change. This distinction matters because it challenges the idea that proximity to the Sussexes is inherently toxic or unsustainable, a claim often repeated but seldom supported by first-hand testimony from those involved. Holt's own voice, calm and affirming, stands as a counterweight to louder but less substantiated criticism. It is also notable that Holt did not wait for rumours to circulate before speaking. He proactively released an official statement, setting the tone and context for his decision, a move that suggests transparency rather than damage control. In that statement, he thanked colleagues, partners, and the Sussexes themselves, emphasising teamwork and shared achievement rather than personal ambition or conflict. For those willing to listen, his message is clear. Leadership transitions can be positive, intentional, and rooted in life balance, even in high-profile environments. The broader reaction to Holt's stepping down thus reveals as much about the media ecosystem surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex as it does about Archewell itself. Where Holt spoke of gratitude, continuity, and family, critics spoke of crisis and collapse. Where he emphasized ongoing collaboration, they predicted abandonment. Where he framed his decision as personal, they insisted on interpreting it as political or strategic. In the end, the most reliable account remains the one provided by Holt himself, supported by the Sussexes' response and by the concrete fact of his continued involvement. James Holt stepped down because he chose to prioritise his family and return home, not because of disillusionment or discord, and he did so while affirming his respect and admiration for Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex. Everything beyond that is interpretation, layered onto a straightforward reality, and the persistence of negative readings says less about Holt's experience than it does about the determination of some critics to view every development through a lens of suspicion. When stripped of speculation and framed in full context, Holt's transition appears not as a scandal or warning sign, but as a mature, thoughtful decision made by a professional who remains proud of his work and supportive of the people he worked alongside.